welcome to Mission Evolution Radio Show with Gwilda Wiyaka, bringing together today's leading experts to uncover ever-deepening spiritual truths and the latest scientific developments in support of the evolution of humankind. For more information on Mission Evolution Radio with Gwilda Wiyaka, visit www.missionevolution.org. And now, here's the host of Mission Evolution, Miss Gwilda Wiyaka.
Better understanding of others is something many people long for. What drives them? What can we expect from them? What's the best way to communicate with them? Does understanding and using the Enneagram unlock these insights? Mission Evolution Radio Show is coming to you around the world on the X Zone Broadcast Network, xzbn.net. With us this hour to explore the evolutionary potential of the Enneagram is Catherine Bell, author of The Awakened Company, Creativity, and the Enneagram. Catherine, CEO and founder of The Awakened Company, helps leaders and organizations thrive through executive coaching, team strategy sessions, and webinars. An award-winning entrepreneur and best-selling author, she holds an MBA from Queen's University and is certified in the Enneagram. Her website, awakenedcompany.com. Catherine, thanks for joining us on Mission Evolution.
Gwilda, thank you so much for having me, and thank you to everybody listening today.
It's wonderful to bring all this information together at a time when it's really needed, you know. So you're certified in the Enneagram. What is the Enneagram?
The Enneagram is a profound roadmap for how we can be more present in our lives. We all bring certain lenses to our world. And Gwilda, only 10% of people, 10% of leaders are actually aware, self-aware, to know which lens they're bringing to the world. And yet we know from business research, the highest performing leaders are those that are self-aware. So the Enneagram helps us to become more self-aware through understanding which of the 9 defaults we operate from the majority of the time. So Ennea means 9 and gram means picture. So it's a picture of 9. And it's the 9 ways in which we operate in the world. And each point has gifts and work-ons. And it invites us into presence. It invites us into how can we lead and be from a different place, which I think, and I also feel, is desperately needed at this point in time.
Yes, on every front, because, you know, there's the world's kind of going mad all around us. And what's needed is conscious leaders, whether they're, you know, leading the PTA or leading their children. That ability to be conscious in that leadership is so needed right now. So who invented the Enneagram?
Very interesting question. That is really up for debate. Some people believe it's about 2,500 years old, an ancient technology. Other people believe it's Oscar Chazo. What is known is that G.I. Gurdjieff did have a role in it in terms of a group called Seekers After Truth. And the Enneagram has been shown from a research perspective to be more accurate in terms of personality typology than something like Myers-Briggs. So this is an ancient numerological system that invites us to dance differently and to have different dance steps as leaders. And as you were saying, Gwilda, as we awaken ourselves, we awaken our relationships, our teams, our organizations, our communities, and our world. But unless we bring that lens of self-awareness, it's very hard to operate outside of default mode. So yeah, it invites us into how do we become, in essence, actually more human.
Or less of what we think human is and more what it should have been, right?
Yes.
So how does it compare, say, for instance, to the horoscope? Because with the horoscope, that can be used for self-awareness, and it tells us what the wave we're riding, basically, but how we surf that puppy is totally up to us. So how does that compare to the Enneagram?
So astrology is definitely, I think it's really important for people to understand their astrological cosmos, because as above, so below. And I think we've really forgotten that. Like, actually, where we are in the cosmos, we're tiny specks on this spinning blue planet. And I think it's really important for people to know their astrology. However, the Enneagram is distinct and separate from our astrological signs. And one of my friends in South Africa, Dirk Klute, was doing some research in terms of, is there a correlation between astrological signs and Enneagram points? And from what I know at this point, there is not. So it's different. It's very different. It's more of, what point are we? What Enneagram point are we? And how are we not that point? So would you like me to go through, Gwilda, what the Enneagram points are so everyone can get a perspective on
Sure.
it?
In a moment. But
Okay, yeah, for sure.
I also wanted to ask you, so we know that the astrological signs are based on our relative positioning in the galaxy at the time and place of our birth. Okay. And then
Mhm.
someone that reads a horoscope does a really good job of, hopefully, balancing that or reading that comparing it to where we are right now. So, in other words, your sign interacts with the energies that are on the planet right now. How does the Enneagram differ from that?
Oh, what a great question, Gwilda. What a fabulous question. Your Enneagram point, so everyone's Enneagram point, your dominant point does not change over time. So it's almost your lens through which you're seeing yourself in the cosmos and on Earth. And astrology, for example, we have our sign and our rising sign and all the interactions with all the different planets. And the planets are always changing. So it's almost like, if you could draw a correlation, is that the way we have our dominant point could be like our sun sign, and then the way we interact could be like our Enneagram instincts. Now, again, there hasn't been any research on this, but I'm just playing with your very, very good and important question, because I think astrology is really, it's really important to know. Like right now, for example, in our world, we know that Venus is in retrograde until mid-April. And because Venus is in retrograde, relationships will not be in harmony. It's a very challenging time. And we're actually seeing that in our world. We're seeing that on an international scale. So there is this kind of important interweaving that you're speaking to, that I think we should all investigate. I do look at my astrology daily to see where things are at. And it's important to me. And I then have a prism through which I can see how my Enneagram point is affected by that particular cosmological prism. So now I'm speaking from my personal experience in using astrology and the Enneagram. And I think the more we can use different roadmaps to be present and bring awareness to. So for example, I'm a Virgo with Libra rising, which Venus is my planet. So I know to be particularly gentle around relationships, especially given that I lead with a 0.8 in the Enneagram, which is a challenger, which is the energy of, wanting to have impact, etc. So yeah, I think you're raising, your question is a very good one, and one that I've not been asked before, Gwilda. So brilliant.
Well, we try to stay individual here.
Yeah.
So you can use, like you were describing, the Enneagram and the horoscope and various other things to kind of triangulate information and get a larger picture of what's really going on for you at any given time.
Yes. In fact, I would invite people to do that. I would invite people to really understand what is happening above in our cosmos so that we can be more present on Earth. We can, and understanding what is our default and how do we behave in that default? And is that, instead of behaving from that automatic place, behaving with more presence and awareness and love and wisdom and healthy power to enable what is possible for our world versus spewing more automaticity into the collective consciousness and also the collective unconsciousness.
The latter being the scary one. So,
Yes.
s-
Yes.
you mentioned that it doesn't change. Your Enneagram is your Enneagram. And yet, I mean, your horoscope's your horoscope, but how you deal with those energies is totally up to the individual. Is it the same with the Enneagram?
It is the same with the Enneagram. So there's also 9 levels of health, Gwilda, within each Enneagram point. So if we can catch ourselves in the act of when we're healthy and when we're unhealthy, and then shift the switch, I call it the awake asleep line. So the levels of development are from Don Riso and Russ Hudson, and the awake asleep line is from the Awakened Company. And what it is when we see ourselves, not coming from a place of good intention, we can flip the switch and become more of our awakened selves with our attitude, our behaviors, and our commitment to that intention. So, but most people, I go into boardrooms and we talk about what is the team's vision, yet most people don't even have their own vision, Gwilda. And we have about 60,000 thoughts a day, 85% are repeating and 95% are negative. So how do we hijack that? And then how do we work with this as it relates to our particular Enneagram point? So for example, I am Enneagram point 8, as I mentioned, with my wing is 7, which is an enthusiast. And I often, Gwilda, my body will turn red with anger. And when my body turns red with anger, I know it's time to stop, take a breath, and reset to my intention. So all of these things with self-awareness, it's like self-awareness micro practices all over the place. However, if we don't have the self-awareness, it's very challenging to change anything.
Well, that therein lies the problem is it's kind of painful looking at where you're not self-aware in order to become self-aware, isn't it?
Oh, it's very, very, very painful. And I'll give a personal example here. Um, the personal example is during COVID, I was working with my colleague and I gave him all of my notes so he would speak my words. And it was really painful because I didn't want to be vulnerable, Gwilda. I didn't want to have my heart exposed. I didn't want to risk being hurt if people rejected what I said. And I thought people would, accept it more from him. So, there is it. And yet over the years, I've been working at how do I work on myself so that I'm willing to be vulnerable. Even talking about astrology today, Gwilda, it's a huge vulnerability point. Like I work with some of the largest corporations in the world, and now I'm talking about astrology. And yet now I think it's the time for the interweaving and interdependence and connectivity of all of these things, because the only way we're going to solve our collective challenges is by being different ourselves and then different in community. And organizations can be this force for good, but
Well,
first we need to get
Catherine,
comfortable.
we're going to, sorry, I'm going to have to interrupt you for
Yeah.
a commercial break, but we will return shortly. So don't you go away. This is Mission Evolution, www.missionevolution.org.
One people, one nation. The end has come, the night has fallen. I have reached the end of day.
What is the anatomy of the Enneagram? With us this hour discussing the Enneagram is author of The Awakened Company, Creativity, and the Enneagram, Catherine R. Bell. Catherine, um, you had offered to give us the 8 points. Now, starting a segment gives us space for that. What are they?
So there are 9 points in the
I'm sorry.
Enneagram. Oh, that's okay. That's okay. The reason you said 8 is because I am a point 8. So,
Oh, okay.
and it is said that leaders capture people's hearts, heads, and hands, and those represent the 3 centers of the Enneagram. So first, let's begin with hands, which is really the belly center. It's our sense of doing and not doing. And these are Enneagram points 8, 9, and 1. 8, 9, and 1. 8 is called the challenger, which has to do with who's got power, who doesn't have power. It has to do with making positive impact, making, um, you know, having a vision and executing that vision. Very determined energetically, and does not like to lose control. So likes to really, really be in control of the situation. 9. So 9 is called the peacemaker. And the peacemaker is a beautiful juxtaposition to the 8. The 9 really loves to have peace in their world and will do anything to maintain the peace. So often will push down their anger, and then can eventually explode. And they're also incredibly, incredibly creative because they see so many different perspectives. Canada as a country really fits within this 9 archetype. So that's the peacemaker. And the 1 is the reformer. And the reformer has to do what's right, what's wrong, where are our values in this, how do we live in integrity. And so the 1 is always has a radar up. They walk into a room and they have the possibility of seeing everything that's wrong in the world. And the invitation for them is to remember everything that's also going right. So the 8, 9, and 1 have to do with action, inaction, and is really our body center, our body of sensation. And it has to do with, anger as well. So now let's move to the heart center. The heart center is the 2, 3, and 4. Points 2, 3, and 4. Point 2 is called the helper. You might consider it the front of the heart. These are the people who are always looking to serve other people, to help other people, to the people who are in the office who do the dishes, no matter whether it's their role or not. They're the people, it's really the mother archetype. And the next one is the 3. The 3 is the achiever. The achiever is the center of the heart. And this is, how we define our success, how we manifest our story. Our purpose has to do with point 3, the achiever. And the 2, 3, and 4 all have to do with image and emotion. The 4, the individualist, you might consider the back of the heart, Gwilda. And these are the deep, creative. Of course, all points are creative in different ways, but these are like the Alanis Morissettes, Johnny Depps of the world, who see the lens through a different way of being and doing. They stew in their emotions, really, really stew. Next is the head center, the 5, 6, and 7. The 5 is the observer. And these are the Stephen Hawking, Albert Einsteins, the woman who played the chess player on that TV show. These are the people that are the intellectuals that love the vast view and also the microscopic. And they tend to study in depth whatever it is that piques their interest. And the head types all have to do with anxiety and thinking things through. The 6 is the loyalist, or we call it the pathfinder in our upcoming book. And these are the people that see all the things that can possibly go wrong and then want to scenario plan around what we can do to solve the challenges that they can see forthcoming. I often think if we had more 6 energy in the world, or if we paid more attention to the 6 energy in the world, that things like COVID would have been wrapped up with a bow a lot longer, because they're scenario planning all the time. Next is the 7, the enthusiast. And these points are really the idea generators. They're the brainstormers. They're the people who I call them the Pied Pipers, who have so many great ideas. The trick with them, though, is to actually ground their ideas so that they can make something happen. So we all have all of the 9 points within us, Gwilda. We have a dominant point, and then one of the 2 types adjacent to our type is our so-called wing. So I am an 0.8 with a wing of 7. So everybody has this kind of modification on the circle. And the Enneagram also has 3 instincts that we could discuss if you're interested. But the 9 points, it's really important for people to understand what their dominant point is so that they can understand what their default is. And then in understanding the default, we can operate from different vistas because we understand that there actually are different vistas. And we can use this Enneagram really as a process map for how do we want to show up in this moment? How do we get at a default? How do we not come from anger, being overly emotional and image, or from anxiety? It teaches us the lens of how to be more loving, more wise, and also the belly center is about healthy power. So that is the invitation, and it's such a profound tool.
Well, one of the issues that I see with any format, okay, whether it's a horoscope or anything else, is the tendency people have to identify with the whether it's a sign or it's a point on the Enneagram, and say, well, that's just the way I am, that's who I am, and not move beyond that. So actually putting themselves in the cage of the system rather than using the system to get out of the cage. How do you work around that?
You are absolutely 100% right. You are 100% right. And there's a tendency to fixate on what, or identify ourselves as blah, 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 blah. We are that and we aren't that. So once we see how we're in the cage, we can get out of the cage. We have all the keys to unlock the cage. So how do we identify what the keys are? It often involves stopping, breathing, self-awareness, self-reflection, and then choosing what is most needed in the moment. And sometimes when I'm faced with a challenge, Gwilda, what I'll do is I will bring out the Enneagram map and I'll say, how would each Enneagram point respond to this situation? So that I understand that I have more options available to me and I can come from more consciousness, because ultimately, Gwilda, it teaches us that we are not separate. It teaches us that we have everything within us that is needed. It teaches us to be more conscious, more awake, more aware, not only of ourselves, of the other and our context as well.
So we're able to dance the Enneagram, it sounds like. So if we become more and more conscious, it becomes a tool rather than an overlording thing. Within that, can we, and I'm sure this is where you're getting to, can we be in a situation and we go, okay, what are the tools I'm working here with these individuals? Who wants to fill what role? And dance the Enneagram in such a way that even if it's not our major point, we can fill that point if it's missing?
Oh, yes, Gwilda, what a brilliant, brilliant point. And I'd like to bring up some research here that I did. So I did a study of 1,000 leaders, and I looked at, what is the percentage of all the Enneagram points? And less than 6% fell into Enneagram points 4 and 5. So point 4 is an individualist and point 5 is the investigator. And what you can do, and what we've done on our teams, is we actually create norms to bring out that energy in ourselves so that we invite the energy in so that we can be more creative, investigate things, rather than just going from automatic as a team. So knowing that, and then knowing our Enneagram point and our teammates' Enneagram points, we can see, what energy do we need so that we can behave differently, so that we can be more thoughtful in our decisions. We had one team I worked with, we had a lot of very assertive energy. The assertive types are the 8, 7, and 3. So we really had to put in the stops of the 4, 5, and also the 9, which are more the receptive types, to like allow space and time to make good decisions.
So, what do we have to go through personally to obtain that kind of flexibility without feeling like we've painted it on and being inauthentic?
Mm. So, what we have to go through personally is, I believe, everyone should have a personal intention, because intention matters. What the way we fill our head and our heart and our bodies with our thoughts, with our mind stream, is so, so, so important. So the first thing is actually to have an intention, an aim, a purpose in our lives, so that when we notice when we're coming from automatic, Gwilda, we can catch ourselves in the act and come from this place of positive intention, and then realize, what is it? How do I really want to show up in this moment? What is my vertical alignment in terms of, being? And then what is my horizontal alignment in terms of doing? And the Enneagram can help us understand how we may need more space and time to be, so that we do from a more holistic place.
You we're you mentioned several times this coming from automatic. What do you mean by that?
Well, HBR estimates only 10 to 15% of people are actually self-aware. So that means that about 85 to 90% of people are coming from this automatic, which means they just come from their personality, their ego,
Their conditioning.
their conditioning, their socialized conditioning, Gwilda.
So, how does birth order play into this? Because birth order can really dictate some of our behaviors, and can it pull us off of the Enneagram that we really came to be?
Wow, you ask the most fascinating questions because they challenge me. I have never thought of birth order and the Enneagram. However, in just thinking about, my own experience with, I have 2 sisters, and my mom was the one who introduced us to the Enneagram. And, I'm the eldest of three girls. And my mom's a teacher, Gwilda, too. And my mom I always was independent right from the get-go. And I always led. And my other sisters, they identify with different points.
Well, I hate to do this to you. We're going to have to leave this as a cliffhanger. It's
Okay.
time for another station break. Catherine and I will be right back to continue our discussion. So please stay right there. This is Mission Evolution, www.missionevolution.org.
One people, one nation, searching through the night. I've been broken, shattered, cast to the wind. I am scattered upon the wind. I've been broken, shattered, cast to the wind. I am scattered upon the wind. I've been broken.
Are you self-aware? Are you sure? This is Mission Evolution, missionevolution.org. With us discussing being awakened is Catherine Arbell. Her website, awakenedcompany.com. Catherine, we were talking about how the birth order may interface with the Enneagram. Oh, and you were telling us a story. Would you please continue?
Yes. So 3 girls. I'm the eldest, and my sisters have different Enneagram points than me. And I definitely would fit kind of the eldest archetype for sure. And my youngest sister would definitely fit the youngest, and my middle sister would definitely fit the middle sister. And that being said, we don't know if the Enneagram is socialized or biological. It's probably a combination of both. For example, with my sons in utero, felt very different. And what's interesting is as they've grown up, they've carried on with those kind of characteristics that they had in utero. So I don't know is the answer. And it's a very interesting thing for us to contemplate for ourselves.
So when the next question was going to be is what dictates the Enneagram? I mean, we know what dictates the horoscope, right?
Mhm.
But what dictates the Enneagram?
I do believe it's a combination of biological and sociological factors. So, for example, my mom said I was independent right from the get go and had leadership skills right from the get go. And now I think those were also cultivated and affirmed through the parenting and through the various things in my life that happened. So I really do think it's a combination of sociology and biology. However, with sociology, I think we're at such a great time of collective awakening that it's time to dust off some of the old structures around our sociological the implications of our sociological structures right now, because it is time for the collective awakening, the awakening of ourselves, and in ourselves is everybody else, including all the stardust. So it's really quite an exciting time for us to be alive, to see the changing structures. And the invitation, I think, is this evolution and revolution of our own consciousness and the collective consciousness. Again, this ripple effect. When we awaken ourselves, we can't help but to awaken our relationships and our world, and vice versa. And it is the time for us to come together in new ways. And in many ways, I think the situation with what is happening internationally, it is saying we are all together, and we're also all together on this spinning blue planet. And the spinning blue planet is saying, enough already. So maybe there's some new ways of being and doing. And I think what this time is about is really awakening new ways of being and doing. And the work first begins with ourselves.
So the collective awakening, how do you see that impacting the Enneagram? Because like you said, it's ancient, and yet we're moving into unprecedented times.
Yes. Well, there's three instincts. One is self-preservation. One is, some call it transmitting, some call it sexual, some call it one-on-one, but this is more like the dynamism of between individuals. And then there's the social instinct, which is care of the group. And everybody has all the three different Enneagram instincts within themselves. And I do feel like it's a collective awakening around the social instinct, which is the recognition and reciprocity for each other. And I think this is a new type of instinct. And in fact, I would even say there's other instincts that are being awakened at this time. For example, all of our inner senses, Gwilda, I feel our awakening, and in the awakening of our inner senses, there's a deeper social instinct that is coming to the forefront about, when you hurt, I hurt. When I'm well, you're well. That sense of collective well-being. And it's interesting because I also think that, there's a fight against this as well. Any time of birth, like I feel like we're at a funeral, Gwilda, and we're also midwifing a new way. And we're in this midwifing of this new social instinct where we're in touch with, and I think AI is an invitation for us to get more in touch with our inner development, the cultivation of our inner development, our inner leadership, our inner senses. So we're at a very juicy time to be here.
So as we're becoming way more expansive, I mean, the AI and all the internet, where people can just at their fingertips get more information, broaden their horizons, and evolution is becoming, a person becomes, or a situation becomes more expansive, more inclusive. Do you think that the Enneagram, in the way that it has been, is going to serve, or does it need to expand also?
I think it is going to serve because it can be a creative portal for us to get to know ourselves. And then what's interesting about the Enneagram, it's not a singularity. It is always evolving and always changing. It's like a dodecahedron. It contains all the elements, all of the energies, and just when you think you got it, you don't. So I think it's an invitation to really study ourselves, and it keeps on unraveling and unraveling and unraveling. And the more we can stay in the fire and transmutation of our core, kind of our core fears, and move to this place of love for ourselves, it can help us do that. It can help us to be more compassionate, more kind, and all of a sudden the world lights up in different ways. You can even look at the Enneagram. What are the different colors associated with the Enneagram points? And even looking at the numbers themselves, in ancient Egypt, numbers were considered divine principles of nature. So getting in touch with nature, what is the number, for example, the number 1 mean? It means so many different things. And when we see a bird, we're at one with that bird. So it is kind of this dancing, alive portal for presence. The trick is we need to stop and get out of the default to allow for the emergence and awakening of truth and reality within ourselves. And I believe we cannot know the unstructured without knowing some kind of structure. So the truth, Gwilda, for me is always in the paradox, and the Enneagram invites us into our paradoxes. And how do we live?
Well, it sounds like the Enneagram expands and contracts as the frequency on the planet does. So, whatever influences that we're being exposed to, does the Enneagram automatically have additional points that were simply invisible to us because there wasn't the light to see them, that then activate at different frequencies?
Oh, Gwilda, another brilliant question. When we look at the Enneagram symbol, what people don't often notice is there's space between it all. And so how do we dance in space? And one of my teachers says, we're all a play. Lama Alione says, we're all a play. And Sematoko Oso and Lopan Charlotta, we're all a play of basic space. And so how do we get in touch with that inner space, that inner guidance, the spaciousness within us that is loving, kind, and also powerful? So the Enneagram is one way, but then there's how do we pay attention to the space in the Enneagram? And the fact that there isn't even such a thing as a straight line, that is not true. The research on straight line, we're all dancing molecules in space and time. And we're also not in space and time. We're something that's beyond space and time. So again, the paradox, and I think the sense of space and spaciousness is so important.
So let's go back a little bit to this all important self-awareness. It seems like that what's going on the planet can either push you deeper into denial and a knee-jerk reaction, or it gives you the opportunity to expand beyond where you've been. And you're saying that intention dictates which one of those you choose?
Intention can really, really help us to be more mindful of our choices. And we can contract into fear, or we can see everything as an opportunity that life is happening with and for us, and for the cultivation of our soul and of our being and of our mind stream. So when we see things happening that we make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. I've made tons of mistakes. And the invitation is, how do I see how those mistakes are an invitation to awakening, rather than shutting into fear and becoming way more imprisoned in anger, in dictatorship, in automatic behaviors.
There's sure enough of that going on out there, isn't there?
There is. And when we see that, it's more joyous. We're all actually looking for things like meaning and belonging and love, and all of those other things like false power, etc. Those are all just masquerades for somebody really, really hurting. So to have compassion for people like that.
Having compassion requires vulnerability. Yes.
Oh, yes, yes.
Okay. So if we have to be willing to be more vulnerable in such turbulent and volatile times, that sounds like a bit of a challenge. How do you approach that?
Well, there's different flavors of compassion, Gwilda. Sometimes we need, soft compassion. Sometimes we need, semi-wrathful compassion. Other times we need fierce compassion. The biggest thing we can do, though, is just take a breath. I often put my hand on my heart, and I feel and sense my body, and I tell myself that I matter, and I repeat my intention to know that the smallest thing, it's always what the smallest thing we can do is. And it begins by loving ourselves. And then in loving ourselves, we might find that extra strength, because compassion is not weak, extra strength to speak our truth, which is so, so, so important at this time, and to be open to hearing other people's truths. Because of course, the truth is the combination and something much more broader than that. But first, put a hand on your heart, tell yourself that you love yourself, sense your body. And from that place, a different form of compassion can enter into whatever situation you may be feeling. I've often, more recently, I have felt very, very angry. And so I'm working with my anger as a point of alchemy to be of more service to humanity at this time. I'm stepping in more, Gwilda, because I feel like it's important. And it's important that we all show up.
And on that note, it's time to go into yet another station break. Please stay with us as Catherine and I continue to explore creativity, the Enneagram, and leadership. This is Mission Evolution, www.missionevolution.org.
One people, one nation, searching through the night. Brilliant feathers of an unearthly hue glide by on the edge of his dream. A whisper of touch, an unheard song. Those bird takes.
Are some leaders and others followers? Which are you? This is Mission Evolution, missionevolution.org. We're continuing our discussion with Catherine R. Bell. Her website, awakenedcompany.com. Catherine, what do you mean by leadership?
Leadership for me is somebody who embodies a desired end state. And so you can see how intention plays into this, Gwilda. And I believe everybody is a leader. And the moment we think otherwise, we're putting a label on them that isn't true. Because there was a research study done, Gwilda, and what they did is they put people of similar socio-demographics into two different rooms. And in one room, they labeled these people leaders. In the other room, they labeled people followers. They then mocked an emergency. And those that were labeled leaders performed very, very well. And those that were labeled followers fell apart at the seams. So how we label and what sticky notes we put on ourselves and others matters. So the moment we label somebody a follower, it's in essence denigrating their behavior. So I prefer to think of everybody as a leader, and it's just a matter of being of service to help empower that leadership. And we can begin by things like, do we take a personal intention? Do we have a personal vision? Do we have mindfulness breaks? Are we becoming more self-aware using the Enneagram? Leadership now is so, so, so important. And in awakening our leadership, we serve many other people.
What problems do you see with today's leadership? How long have we got, right?
Yeah. So, something that's really, really, really important for our society is rule of law and behaving with integrity. And, and when I did international business studies at Queen's, one of the top things you look for in terms of creating a strategy is, does the country have rule of law? And
Let's back up. What is rule of law?
rule of law means basically, how we're going to operate together, how we're going to work together. So
Okay.
that's what it means. And it's very, very, and as leaders, for us to have values, for us to take a stand for the higher good, not just our individual good. Leadership is not about the relentless pursuit of more. Leadership is actually about the elevation of other people, the elevation of our communities, and also the elevation of our own behavior. So I am seeing a denigration of leadership in many, many fronts. However, I am also seeing an incredible openness to the work that we do, because people want a different form of leadership for this time. People are wanting leadership that is led by values, people that also intellectuals, like people who know what they're talking about, and people who have a vision and take a stand for that vision. So it is really an interesting time in terms of leadership. The clients that we're working with are truly stepping into, how do I be the best leader? And yet on the collective stage, we need to see more unity, more harmony, more peace, and less of a us them. That is so old. That is so old. We need to work together to solve our collective challenges, and do so with integrity and with rule of law.
So it sounds like you're talking about, the many view leadership as one that is in control of a situation.
Mm.
But in the old ways, the old kings and queens, particularly in the Irish tradition, they served their people. They weren't in control of their people per se. They served their people. And we seem to have gotten away from that. Do you think that that needs to be part of the future leadership?
Absolutely. So the 4 I's of transformational leadership are individualized consideration. That is, we consider people as individuals. Intellectual stimulation, we get people thinking for themselves. Idealized influence, living our values. And inspirational motivation, we live the vision. All of those words begin with I, and yet everything a great transformational leader does is elevate the other, serves the other, empowers the other. And then there's this other concept of authentic leadership, which I also believe in to a degree. But that being said, you don't want to hear everything that's going on in my brain. So we need to be authentic to ourselves, elevate the other. And then this new concept, which I'm working on in terms of doing a research study with 2 universities, is awakening leadership, which also considers our context, considers our earth, considers our minerals, our plants, the humanity associated with it. So right now, an awakening leader is one that serves either a human or planetary issue, and in so doing does the least amount of suffering possible to either people or planet. So this is the type of leadership that is really awakening for this time, and so of such great importance.
So why is strong leadership, or I guess I should say more balanced leadership, more critical now than ever before?
Well, command and controlled leadership, Gwilda, as you were mentioning earlier, does not work. We have the majority of people are disengaged at our workplaces. People rate the worst time of their day as their time with their bosses, and most businesses don't survive past 9 years. So we need another way of doing. It's an illusion to think that it has been working, because it hasn't. And the sense of using the Enneagram to awaken our own leadership and then get in service of our organizations, of our relationships, of our teams, we can then solve our collective challenges. However, it's only by organizing differently and not from this default of not being self-aware, of operating from fear instead of love, and of operating in terms of anxiety instead of flow.
Our leadership and the people that are subject to it heretofore has been one of dictatorial kind of stance, and everybody follows the leader, which to my way of thinking destroys that very individuality we need to become more than what we are. How does the new leadership that you're suggesting avoid that trap?
We know that the most high performing teams are the most diverse teams. And we also know, I was taught this at Cornell, that diversity of thought matters. So we can use the Enneagram in terms of diversity of thought. And when we bring in a more holistic picture with different perspectives, we actually come up with more creative and impactful solutions. It is not through, my way or the highway. That does not work. That does not serve the majority of people. So it is
and this takes us full circle back to, you have to be self-aware to be willing to be inclusive, don't you?
Yes. And without the self-awareness, and also it's such an interesting and provocative journey to become self-aware. And in fact, maybe it's the journey of all of our lifetimes. Everything becomes more meaningful and interesting when we become more self-aware. Instead of coming from automatic, we are human beings. We are not human doings. And the relentless pursuit of productivity results does not serve our humanity. So it is time to bring our humanity back into our work. And I believe organizations are forces for good. So is business. We just need to do it a different way, as we've been discussing.
How do you see leadership evolving?
I see, first of all, I went and sat on in New York. I forget, what was it called? It was at the time when there was collective upset around Wall Street. Anyway, it made me realize why we need leadership, because a leaderless movement doesn't really work. So we do need leadership. However, I believe everybody has jewels to contribute to our leadership and to our humanity and to the way we operate. It's like we're all sand in the mandala. We're all a piece of sand, and we all must do our bit to contribute to that mandala. However, unless we're clear about who and what we are, we won't know whether we're to be the red sand, the blue sand, the yellow sand, the white sand. So the important thing is to become self-aware so that we can contribute to the best of our ability to that mandala and to the mandala of life.
Do you think that Enneagram, as we've been talking, it kind of occurs to me, has kind of a life of its own, where it shifts and shuffles people to the best advantage?
Yes, it does when we become not fixated, as you raised earlier in our conversation, on our Enneagram point. We have our dominant Enneagram point, and we also have access to all of the other types. And can we put on the different lenses? So some days I want to wear the pink lenses, sometimes the yellow, sometimes the blue, sometimes the white. Do I know what lens is needed in the moment? And then in that, it shifts everything. So we don't become attached to our Enneagram point. Rather, we use it to broaden our perspective, to get out of the prison, to get out of becoming an actor in a script that is automatic.
We don't get to be Omatron. How do you say that? Omatrons anymore, where you're
right.
You just poke this button and this is the response. Poke this button and this is the response. Mostly we're triggered into our behavior, aren't we?
We are very much triggered, and the Enneagram teaches us what our triggers are, and instead of being reactive, how we can be more responsive. And
well, it's that time in the show, and I get to ask you, Catherine, what is your mission?
My mission is to drop into the intoxicating raw reality of being, so that the reality of being becomes me.
Beautiful. And helping others do it, I assume that looks to be what you're doing.
Yeah, well, and in so doing, Gwilda, it ripples out and affects everybody. I am here to be of service to humanity, and also of service to the planet. My other words that I use, I have 3. I'll read them all to you. To be and become evermore a healthy muse to radiate love, wisdom, and power in service to humanity and the planet. The third one is to become so crystal clear in my being, so all debris not meant for me is cleared away.
Very
However,
good.
to your point, the second one is my ultimate, to be and become evermore a healthy muse to radiate love, wisdom, and power in service to humanity and the planet.
Lovely, Catherine. Unfortunately, you're out of time. Thanks
Oh,
so much for coming on the show, dear heart.
thank you so much, Gwilda.
Our guest this hour has been Catherine R. Bell. Catherine is the author of The Awakened Company, Creativity and the Enneagram. To find out more about Catherine, where you can find her book and all she has to offer, visit her website, awakenedcompany.com. This has been Mission Evolution with Gwilda Wiyaka. For more information or to visit, you can visit our past archived episodes at www.missionevolution.org. But please, be sure to join me right here next time. This mission will continue, bringing information, resources, and support to our evolving world.
One people, one nation, searching through the night. One people, one nation, searching for the light. One people, one nation, coming from the stars. One people, one nation, to heal this earth where